away the farm. He needs new conferees. We got a treasure of them that would love to get in that room to negotiate and take the arrows that come with it if and when a government shutdown comes, which I think it will. But the government needs to go on a diet anyway. People are sick of the government. Look what it's doing against us. And again, the spending has got to stop.
You can follow Ralph Norman at Ralph Norman through this. America's Sunrise is next. I'll see.
Indicted. The president's son is now facing federal firearms charges that include making false statements and possession of a firearm as a prohibited person. What this means for the case against him and the impeachment inquiry against his father, that's ahead.
MAGA mania in full gear as President Trump continues to hold the lead in the race for the White House and hold sway over the Republican Party. Trump advisor Kimberly Guilfoyle will be here with an insider look at the president's run for the White House.
Also on the ascend, Vivek Ramaswamy, the bad boy businessman and independent thinker, has caught the eye of the Republican Party and the former president. Vivek will join us here with his vision for the future and his take on the candidates he's running against.
We've got your back as you start your day.
Articulating what the majority of Americans feel today, and I really appreciate that you do.
Y'all tell the truth.
You guys are our voice.
We watch every morning while getting ready for work.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Dr. Gina. Welcome to American Sunrise, live from West Palm Beach, Florida. It's Friday. Woo! And it's been so much fun this week having the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, the icon, Terrance
All
Bates.
of those things? Wow.
Yeah. What people don't know, Terrance, is that we fist bump across the room.
We do.
To each other right before we go on air. But today, we fist bumped in person, and it was special. And we agreed that we're going to do that every day before the show, virtually, because we're going to miss you when you're not here.
You guys have been very hospitable. It's been great being here with you. Love you. Mwah.
Mwah, mwah, mwah.
Love you.
We should also bring in big air kisses to the one and only David Brody out in the swamp, Washington, D.C. David, how are you this morning? Did you get all your makeup on, Mac Daddy?
Mac Daddy is ready to go for sure, Gina. So I'm excited to be here. And Hunter Biden, not too excited about the news that he's received yesterday, but we'll talk all about it. Terrance Bates first in West Palm. With the headlines. Terrance, there you are.
Here I am, David, and the story you just mentioned tops our headlines. These are truly historic times, as Hunter Biden is now the first child of a sitting president to face criminal charges. The first son and his legal team are preparing a defense this morning after Hunter was indicted on federal gun charges for allegedly lying about his illegal drug use on a federal form to buy a gun. In all, Hunter faces 3 counts. The new charges against the first son are only for the gun violations. Special counsel David Weiss is still expected to file additional tax charges, though. You may remember the younger Biden was set to accept a plea deal back in July on 2 misdemeanor tax charges and that gun charge, but the agreement fell apart in court. Reaction to the indictment is coming in hot and heavy this morning. In fact, with many Republicans raising some serious questions.
That's the one crime that he committed that you cannot tie Joe Biden into. So we'll see what happens with the other 11 or so crimes that the president's son's committed.
And President Trump agrees, adding 1 down, 11 to go on Truth Social. The Democrats, with all of their horrible, very unfair, and mostly illegal witch hunts, have started a process that is very dangerous for our country. They have opened the proverbial Pandora's box, and it is possible that the USA will never be the same again. So sad. He wrote all of that again on Truth Social. And speaking of President Trump, he is enjoying a bit of a legal victory this morning after a New York appeals court judge ruled to push back the October 2nd trial against the former president and his family business. Thursday's order came after Mr. Trump and his legal team sued the judge overseeing New York Attorney General Letitia James's case, accusing him and James of defying a court order related to that lawsuit. While the trial could still happen on October 2nd, it is on hold for now, pending review by a 5-judge panel, which is expected to rule sometime late this month. In the meantime, a hearing on motions in the case is still set for a week from today. That's a quick check of your headlines. Now, time for a bit of some prayer and a Bible verse, Dr. G.
Let's do that. Let's get to today's Bible verse from Jesus Calling. Greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for his friends. John 15:13. And you know, I'm one who warns constantly that Donald Trump is not God and Donald Trump is not Jesus, and we should never compare the two. But I do believe that the level of sacrifice that Donald Trump has put forth is absolutely ordained by God. And I believe that he has ordered his footsteps, and I believe that he's anointed him for such a time as this. And so I love this scripture, though, and I've always loved this even before I knew who Donald Trump was. And many know, was not a fan of Donald Trump actually getting into the first presidential race. But I do love sacrifice on behalf of God and country in whatever format that is. And so especially to all of our military veterans and to our 9/11 prisoners, this goes out to you today, that you have demonstrated exactly as Jesus demonstrated. And thank you for that.
Amen.
David, the Hunter Biden indictment has everyone fired up in the swamp. It sure does, doesn't it?
Yeah, and there's a lot to sift through. We're going to do it all here today on American Sunrise. We'll have Vivek Ramaswamy a little bit later. But right now, joining us to talk more about this is Dr. Ben Carson. We know him well. You know him well. A patriot for sure, and the founder and chairman of the American Cornerstone Institute. Dr. Carson, thanks for being here. Really appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you. It's always good to be with you, David.
Let me start with Hunter Biden. What do you make of these charges? They could have potentially charged him with more. More may be coming, but there's a lot of folks that think this is a distraction based on this idea that Joe Biden, the big guy, might be the one that clearly the one that Republicans really want to go after here.
Well, obviously, there's some attempt to shield the Biden family, including Hunter, as much as possible. But I think it's become so apparent that there are major legal problems there that it can no longer be swept under the rug. So I think now they have to say, what's the best thing that we can do to preserve their party? Because they're much more concerned about their party than they are about America and American people and our system of law and fairness. Those things are secondary to them. It's all about the party.
And Dr. Carson, I just have to be really honest with you and tell you that a lot of Americans are having a conversation right now about the kind of person they would like to be Donald Trump's pick for vice president. And a lot of people think that a calm, reverent man with a deep faith, with a loving family, a beautiful wife, vast wisdom and experience. The list could go on. And I don't know if you can think of anyone like that, but we were kind of wondering if you agree that that kind of person would make a great vice presidential pick.
Well, you know, we need to pray that the Lord will come up with the right situation. You know, I've told President Trump that God chose him for this time. You know, in the Bible, God used all kinds of people. Even, you take somebody like David. I look at all the stuff that he did, and yet God said he's a man after my own heart. You know, you need various kinds of people to do certain types of things. The swamp, I call it a cesspool, is a pretty awful thing. And you're going to need somebody who's vigorous, who's tough, and who will actually solve the problem. I think the American people recognize that if the administrative state is successful in taking down Donald Trump, it's over.
Yeah.
In terms of America, it's over.
Yeah. And I agree with you on that, Dr. Carson. But just as a follow-up, were he to tap you, would you have the conversation with him about being his vice president?
I would have a conversation with God first. That's always going to be my go-to area. And whatever he would think is the right thing, that's what I would do.
Love that.
Let me ask you a little bit about Joe Biden. You're a world-renowned brain surgeon. That transitions me into Biden, kind of. I mean, what is your observation exactly about what's been going on? I mean, it's been really sad to watch, obviously. But beyond all of that, I'm curious if you think he'll actually drop out at some point in this 2024 race. You can already hear the drumbeat behind the scenes, and now we're starting to get some inkling that Democrats clearly don't want him in the race against Trump.
Well, I think whether he voluntarily drops out or not, I don't think that he will be the candidate. They will find a way. Yeah, they will find a way to remove him. Because, as I said before, they're much more concerned about the party than they are about the country and about the good for the American people. So they'll get him out one way or another.
Well, the push for COVID jabs. Oh, sorry, David, did you have a follow-up?
Well, just a quick follow-up. Do you have anybody in mind, or do you think the Democrats have someone in mind? Do you think this is going towards Michelle Obama as a save the party candidate? Is that what you're saying, or who do you think?
I certainly think that she would be on the list. It may come down to the convention, maybe some things going on there. You know, they can't afford to put Joe Biden up there if the party is their only concern.
Dr. Carson, the push for COVID jabs and masks is back. I can't believe it. Will the American people, do you think, comply again this time like most did the last time around? Or do you think most Americans are well informed enough to know that the masks didn't work, the jabs caused more problems than they helped? And what is your message to the American people about this level of compliance?
Well, you think about America and what do we represent? We represent the land of freedom, of liberty, of people being able to lead the life that they want to lead based on their own judgments. Now, we've seen the deleterious effects of masking and mandates on education, on general health, on the economy. We know that it didn't work. So why would we do that again? You know, that's the definition of insanity.
Yeah.
So I don't think the American people will do it. Never again.
Dr. Carson, we wish you and your sweet family all the best. Thank you so much for taking time to get up early and join us today.
Good to see you, Gina, and David, too.
Great to see you.
Thanks, Dr. Carson.
All right, who do you think more Americans trust to fix our economy? Donald Trump or Joe Biden? A new poll will make you feel like the smartest person in the room, and that might be because you are. And that's that next ahead as American Sunrise continues. Welcome back, everybody. Hey, what do you guys think about this Hunter Biden indictment on gun charges? Will he be brought to justice, or is this just a distraction? David?
Well, I mean, look, I think it's a distraction for sure. I think that feels like a bit of a no-brainer. I mean, the question is, what about the potential money laundering charges? What about the FARA charges? You know, in other words, the Foreign Agent Registration Act charges for being an unregistered foreign agent. You've got that. And did I say money laundering? I'm sorry. There's so many charges. I think I've lost track. But the question is, when are all those charges going to come? And here's the problem. And this is why I think it's all not just a distraction, but this is just a big parlor game at this point, because the statute of limitations runs out in 2024 for the FARA charges, the unregistered foreign agent charge, or foreign lobbying agent, excuse me, because it started in 2019 when he was with Burisma. So now 2024 is 5 years. That's it. So if they're going to go and do this, potential tax charges, but if they're going to do this, the FARA charges may just not stick at that point because the statute of limitations will run out. So this is a parlor game. This is what they're doing. And we haven't even gotten to the fact that Joe Biden is the real the target here by Republicans, but this is a pass-off, if you will. Terrance, I'm curious to get your take on it.
David, to your point, I think the reason that we're seeing these gun charges now is because the statute of limitations on those gun charges specifically is set to run out here in the next few weeks. And so they're trying to get ahead of the statute of limitations. But I think the bigger picture here, if we broaden the scope, is that there's a move. And we were talking in the break that that Dr. Carson kind of made news saying that he didn't think that Joe Biden was going to be the candidate in 2024 for Democrats. I think the bigger picture here, if we broaden the scope on that issue, is that all of this very well may be to put things in place to help limit President Biden's appeal, if you will, in the public by putting these charges against Hunter and potentially moving Joe Biden out of the picture. I think that's the larger picture that we're seeing here, and it's being done through prosecution of Hunter Biden.
Yeah, I think. Go ahead, David.
Well, I was going to say, I think what we're seeing here, lady and gentleman, is that there has been a private push, clearly. I mean, the New York Times has reported on this, and I do think they're accurate here, which is that there's been a private push to basically get Joe Biden out of the race, to say, look, stop, we can't have this. And that hasn't worked. And so now they're going to go public eventually. I think you'll see more and more people come out and say it publicly, but I think the Hunter Biden indictment is a soft push for Biden to say, you know what, we're going to indict your son as well. I think they had to do that politically, but beyond all of that, that's a way to put more pressure on Biden to get out of the race. I think they're going to make it at some point untenable. That's kind of my sense of it.
Our own Miranda Khan, who is on vacation actually at her class reunion, we are praying that she's having a wonderful time, but she always makes the point of the timeline. She loves to talk about the timeline, and she's absolutely right. So my question is to you guys, to you first, maybe, David, do you think that we will see a new Trump indictment? Because, I mean, doesn't that always follow big news on the Bidens?
Well, it does. I mean, I guess the left is never really out of indictments with Trump. They're always looking for the next new thing, if you will. But I think they've reached their limit, and I'll tell you why, because I think that they've seen his poll numbers increase after each indictment, and they're like, wait a minute, we better stop the indictments. We're helping them too much. So I'm not sure if another indictment really helps the left at this point, Terrance.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't know if there will necessarily be another indictment, but I do suspect there will be a new development in the various indictments that are already against him in the various court cases. That would not at all surprise me if there's a new development. Maybe no new indictment, but there will be another mint in terms of development.
The T-Man with a prediction. I think you might have something there. We're going to watch for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Terrance thought, by the way, that I was describing him when I was talking to Dr. Carson, describing this amazing, eloquent, wonderful, peaceful man with such a great heart and such an amazing experience and the whole beautiful. And so Terrance did say that he is not.
No,
I want you all to mark this down. He is not. He cannot accept. We're sorry, President Trump. Terrance Bates loves his job and he loves his coworkers, and he just can't accept the vice presidential nomination.
Even though similar to
You're
Dr.
taking
Carson,
your name out of the running. You're taking your name out of the running.
Even though similar to Dr. Carson, I will confer with the God, but God has already told me, no, bro, sit on down, sit on down. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Chinese threat. While there's a special House committee looking into the threat from China, is China actually preparing for war with the U.S.? We'll discuss when American Sunrise continues.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. By the way, we're so glad that you are with us this morning and hopefully every morning. And tell your friends, our numbers are going crazy, and that's all because of you, and we are thanking you for that. I am also excited to show you my interview coming up with Kimberly Guilfoyle when I spoke to her earlier. One of the most interesting parts of what she said was the advice that she gave to California Governor Gavin Newsom, who also happens to be her ex-husband. So we have that coming up for you, so you're going to want to stick around for that. Now let's get to some headlines, as they, of course, are sponsored by AMAC.
This news break is brought to you by AMAC, Association of Mature American Citizens.
Senior citizens around the country are turning to certificate programs that are being offered at universities, community colleges, and trade associations in order to stay mentally stimulated and, at the same time, find a new way to bring in some extra cash. Advocates for people 65 years old and older point to hundreds of programs that are available. For instance, Notary Public, that's one of the more popular part-time gigs that seniors are pursuing. Seniors are becoming notaries because the qualifications are generally very basic. You typically have to be 18 years old, a resident of the state, and have no criminal record. Plus, the cost for certification generally only is several $100s, and courses for certification only take between 3 and 6 hours. Plus, there are now options to be a remote online notary. Real estate is also a real option for seniors these days, as the coursework for a license takes between 40 and 168 hours depending on the state where you live. The only thing left is to pass an exam. Several states are also offering what are called career switching programs that allow people to transition from one profession to teaching. Some of those programs can be completed within months. Thursday's indictment of first son Hunter Biden will likely be one of the themes of Attorney General Merrick Garland's testimony before the House Judiciary Committee next Wednesday. The Attorney General will be on the hot seat before a panel of furious Republican lawmakers who are expected to call him to task over the seditious conspiracy charges and convictions against January 6 defendants, as well as special counsel Jack Smith's ongoing investigations into President Trump and the subsequent indictments. Expect a contentious and raucous hearing, as many Republicans have been calling for Garland's impeachment, and recent events have added fuel to that fire. Now that America has had a few days to digest the idea that impeachment proceedings against President Biden are moving forward, even if just preliminarily, you, the American people, are reacting. A brand new Reuters Ipsos poll completed on Thursday finds that 41% of respondents approve of Congress opening an impeachment investigation into the president over allegations that he and his son were involved in a pay-to-play scheme during his vice presidency. 35% of respondents are against the idea, and 24% just aren't sure. In calling for the impeachment inquiry this week, Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy said there is a, quote, culture of corruption surrounding President Biden and his family, particularly related to first son Hunter Biden's business dealings. That's a quick check of your headlines. Now, let's switch things up and talk with David Brody. So, David, what headline is catching your attention this morning?
Oh, well, Terrance, there are quite a few. The Washington Free Beacon has a very interesting story out, actually quoting the Air Force Secretary. Let's take a look at this headline. This is Air Force Secretary Frank Kendall, who says, the intel couldn't be clearer. China preparing for war with us. Oh, great. And Joe Biden is at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Oi, Gavolt. He said in a speech earlier this week that China's preparing for war with the United States. This is the quote, today the intelligence couldn't be clearer. Whatever its actual intentions may be, I could not say, but China is preparing for a war, and specifically for a war with the United States. That should scare, I'm going to say it, the bejesus out of all of us, especially because Biden is somewhere either at a shuffleboard tournament or taking a nap. Let's get more with Tara Dahl right now, the former Deputy Chief of Staff at the National Security Council, and of course, a Real America's Voice contributor. Tara, my goodness, the first thing I think about is Taiwan and what could happen there. And we have to pray that this does not happen. China's aggression against Taiwan does not happen under this administration, under Biden's watch.
Yeah, David, good morning. It's good to be with you. And this is something that we have known about. Gordon Chang specifically has been really warning America that China has been preparing for war. They are right now engaged in the fastest military buildup since World War II. They have already created a war cabinet. They have been mobilizing the civilian population for war. And so this is coming from the Air Force Secretary now. But we've known about this, and China has been engaged in unrestricted warfare now with the United States for decades. But now, because of the weakness out of the Biden administration, a direct result of the failed leadership coming out of this administration, now they are engaging at directly preparing for war with the United States because they see America being weak. And as you mentioned, Taiwan, they are right now the alliance with, the scary thing is the alliance with Russia, the alliance with North Korea that is forming in this axis now because the enemy of my enemy is my friends. And so that's because of the Biden administration's failed policies. And we're starting to see the consequences of that, David.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that alliance between Russia and China. We have Putin and President Xi of China basically having kind of an unofficial love fest. I mean, they've met like 40 times or so in the last decade. And of course, we know about the summit just a few months ago. What are we supposed to make of that? I mean, they're clearly having some sort of not a technically an alliance, but definitely a pseudo alliance. And it seems like it's all because they see America a certain way, whether it be they think America is going to dominate globally. I'm not quite sure. There's a lot of different reasons for it. What's your assessment as to why they are forming this alliance?
Well, I think it solidified it in the war in Ukraine. You had China come out basically giving a green light to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and now their relationship is growing stronger. They're doing joint military exercises close to Japan. Just in the last several months, they've been doing this. And now Kim Jong-un is literally in Russia meeting with Putin this week. So you're seeing this alliance, and it's forming into that military alliance. And I want to make another point on the war, how China is preparing for war with the U.S. and the southern border, David, as well, and include the statistics for 2023 on the Chinese nationals that are crossing over in the southern border. We're at over 18,000 now Chinese nationals that have crossed illegally over the southern border. 15,000 of those, David, are military-aged men. Majority are male, and we know that some of them already have ties to the CCP. So we are in a very vulnerable situation right now.
And now we're seeing, and I was just putting on my reading glasses here because I want to make sure I have the right attribution here, but the U.S.-Mexico border, now the world's deadliest land migration route, according to the International Organization for Migration. And yet the Biden administration talks about being such a moral administration. Give me a break. If they were a moral administration, they wouldn't encourage people to come along that route.
Absolutely. And I just returned, David, from being on the border, and I saw that and saw the conditions and the heat that these migrants have to come through to come to the United States. And the Biden administration is encouraging them to cross over. And keep in mind, there's been 250,000 unaccompanied children in the last 2 years that have come through those through the Darien Gap and have crossed over in those harsh conditions that the disease that they're going through right now in the Darien Gap, the disease is killing off many of them. And there's 85,000 children in the United States who we don't know where they are. They're unaccounted for. So this administration is directly responsible for the human trafficking and the deaths of these migrants by encouraging them and allowing them to come through the southern border.
Tara Dahl, great information and great to see you on this Friday. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, David.
I really appreciate it. All right, it's the highlight of my day. It is. Well, okay, I like Gina Loudon and Terrance Bates, but Tara Dahl, I mean, come on, are you kidding me? That's fantastic. All right, when we come back, iPhones and radiation. Good night, everybody. Good luck with your iPhone. No, I'm just kidding. All right, when we come back, we've got a lot to talk about, including users of the iPhone. You know, one of the models was just pulled off the shelves in France for emitting too much radiation. So why wasn't the same thing done in America? Well, we have a theory. Find out ahead on American Sunrise as we continue.
everybody, to American Sunrise. Beautiful view there of exactly where we are. Actually, that's just right over there. I'm Dr. Gina, along with Terrance Bates. We are so happy to have you here in the West Palm Beach studios.
Well, it is wonderful to be here, and I have to say, video like what we just saw here, I may never go home to Colorado. I may just call the family.
We'll keep you.
Need to come
we'll
down
come
here.
visit because I really love to ski. Colorado's my favorite place to ski. I'm a Keystone girl.
Okay.
I like Keystone. I also like Vail. I also like Aspen. But so we can go back and visit a lot. Take the show to Colorado because we miss our Denver people. But it'd be great to have you here.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. And I think now it's time to take a look at our health. Usually when I think it's time to take a look at something, it's you with the headlines, but I think it's me with the wellness and the wellness company. Do you have an iPhone? Because this is something I've been on for a long time. If you've one of those folks out there that has followed me, you know I've been talking about this since my radio days, and I don't mean to scare you, but you need to listen to this. Take a look at this headline, Terrance. French regulators have ordered Apple to stop selling the iPhone 12 after it failed recent European tests for emitting safe levels of electromagnetic radiation that can be absorbed, of course, by the body.
Now, I'll leave it to the French to bring something up, but it was the only iPhone model that didn't pass, and the National Frequency Agency has called for Apple to fix the malfunction immediately for phones already in use. If it can't, the agency will have to issue an official recall. But, Dr. G, here's the big question.
Yeah.
If the iPhone 12 didn't pass the test for EU safety standards, then how did it pass the one here in the United States?
You might ask that.
Did it?
Yeah.
So, is it actually possible that the government is going easy on Apple, a known proponent for the agenda, of course, and at the expense of 58% of Americans who happen to use iPhones? And that's a real question.
There are a lot of things you can have in America that you can't have other places. There are things they put in our beer. There are things we put in our wheat and bread. The reason why people have gluten problems in America, and that maybe they'll go to Europe and they don't have the same gluten problem. There are a lot of things like this. The iPhone thing is really scary, though. I have a personal story from this that's interesting. I had a man checking my house when I lived back in San Diego, and they were putting up all these towers everywhere around my house. So I had a man checking, you know, all the radiation, and he said to me that he had talked to Joe Biden about this after Beau Biden had died from brain cancer. And that he believed, and that a lot of people, a lot of scientific experts, they cover it up, it's hard to find, but you can find them that believe that holding your cell phone right up to your head all the time can cause forms of brain cancer, certain forms of brain cancer. And Joe Biden agreed with him and was devastated, of course, about the loss of his son. And Joe Biden said, hey, you know, I want you to know, if I get in, I will absolutely do something about this. And of course, you know, the end of this story is that Joe Biden took a big donation from, guess what, a cell phone company, and that never happened. And so it is. You know, it is interesting, and you have to think about it. And I don't know if there's anything that the wellness company emergency kit can do for iPhone radiation in particular, but my goodness, have you seen everything that you can use ivermectin for? And they have ivermectin in their pack and everything else in there you could need when the next medical crisis comes, whether it comes in the form of a pandemic or something much more mundane like a tick bite. You and your family will need to be prepared. That's where the wellness company comes in.
In fact, you know the wellness company because we often have their doctors like Dr. Peter McCullough on the show. The wellness company and their doctors are medical professionals that you can trust, and their new medical emergency kits are the gold standard when it comes to keeping you safe and healthy. In fact, Dr. Gina has just pulled one up right here.
I've got one right here, and I love this color. Be ready for anything. This medical emergency kit comes in an assortment of life-saving medications. It includes inside ivermectin and the Z-Pack. This medical emergency kit provides a guidebook to aid in the safe use of all of these life-saving medications. So rest assured knowing that you have emergency antibiotics, antivirals, antiparasitics on hand to help you and your family stay safe from whatever the globalists throw at us next, or the cell phone companies.
And like you said, there's a guidebook in there. So if you kind of have questions, you can go through the guidebook inside, read about whatever's in there, whatever the use might be, and it will help you. All you have to do is go to twc.health/voice today in order to order your kit. That's twchealth.health/voice, and you can use the promo code VOICE to save 10%, which is always a benefit.
All right. Well, Kimberly Guilfoyle, one of the most recognizable people in America, an advisor to President Trump, the fiance of Donald Trump's own son, Don Jr. Kimberly came from humble beginnings, working as a district attorney to becoming a talk show host and now one of the leading voices for MAGA. Earlier, I had a chance to chat with Kimberly, and I asked her whether or not she believes Hunter Biden will finally be brought to justice with this new indictment.
But obviously the time for accountability is long past due. But let's not get distracted by the gun charges. There needs to be much more than just these indictments, because Hunter Biden was at the center of the Biden crime family's foreign corruption scheme. He was the bag man for Joe Biden, and he did much more than lie on a gun application. OK, so let's just be straight up right there. I'm happy as a former prosecutor and officer of the court that we are seeing some moves towards justice here. But let me tell you something, Gina. This should have happened under Bill Barr and his DOJ. So, yeah, we're getting it now finally under Merrick Garland. But it just tells me that they're getting pretty tired of Joe Biden and getting ready to exit him stage left, leg sweep him, or just push him over with a flick of a finger, and to me, as a patriotic American and as a former officer of the court, there needs to be an indictment under foreign corruption statutes, FARA violations, acting as an unregistered foreign agent, and tax charges, just to name a few. Yeah. And I think this is very important that we see this going forward as a country, that they make sure there's accountability, because otherwise all we've seen is just a voracious appetite for lawfare and, punishing and persecuting Donald Trump because they can't beat him in the ballot box. But This just tells me, read the tea leaves here, that it's going to be the end of these two here, as you see on the screen, Hunter and Joe Biden, and accountability is coming.
I really hope so. But, you look at this and you think about how, as you mentioned, D.C. was sure quick to impeach President Trump over a phone call to get the Ukrainians, to get to the bottom of Biden's corruption. I mean, that's what he was really looking for in that phone call. But Joe Biden could have been impeached multiple times already on a list that is too long for me to even keep repeating on this show. Is GOP leadership dragging its feet, do you think, or is this the right strategy to go after Biden with maybe a sort of slower precision?
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. Let's be honest, right? There's a lot of pressure on Kevin McCarthy, but he has done the right thing with, greenlighting this going forward, the impeachment, inquiry of Joe Biden. But quite frankly, this is long past due, if we're being honest, right? The Biden family put profits over patriotism and over this country. They are corrupt to their very core. It's reprehensible, the lengths to which they have gone to undermine, hurt this country by putting their pockets, first. And they put the interests of foreign adversaries over what's good for the American people. That in and of itself is unconscionable. Now, Kevin McCarthy, a friend of mine, he's made the right move, but there needs to be follow through, and there doesn't need to be such a big push to get something done that is, the right thing to do. So I'm encouraged that we're moving in the right direction. But, just to lay it out, for the audience, an inquiry is just really, quite frankly, Ginny, the first step of the impeachment process. Right. So evidence is going to be gathered for the articles or charges of impeachment. And, it's serious because it's against a government official. But this is very different when you look at it, the juxtaposition versus what they're doing to President Trump, because there's real evidence, facts and evidence here of corruption. Okay, you can follow the money, you see what's gone on here, versus what they've done for Donald Trump, who's been vindicated in every single thing that they've tried to throw at him. And now he's facing 4, new indictments, essentially with 750 plus years potentially behind bars. It's outrageous. But yet Joe Biden gets to stay in the White House. So, bank records show, these actual facts and evidence, that nearly $20 million in payments were directed to the Biden family members and associates through various shell companies and corporations. And if you follow the Biden family money trail, it takes you directly to foreign adversaries like Russia, like China, like Ukraine, and like Romania. Mm-hmm. So that should tell you something right in and of itself. And the Treasury Department alone has more than 150 transactions involving the Biden family. That is significant when you think about that, 150. just with Treasury alone. And Biden has been caught lying, claiming again and again that he didn't have knowledge of Hunter's dealings, but that is a lie. He's been caught red-handed. And plus, we're also learning today about the apparent intimidation tactics by Hunter's lawyers against the IRS whistleblowers. Don't forget that, Gina, who called out the political interference in the Hunter investigations and were punished for it. And that's what we see over and over again. But, this has to be the first step in a series and succession of charges and indictments and accountability. Mm-hmm. And it has to go all the way up to the top, to Joe Biden himself, to the DOJ with Merrick Garland, to the head of the IRS, head of the DOJ, all of the above, FBI. And that's why there needs to be a complete, cleaning of house in 2024.
Looking at the bench of GOP folks running in the primary, none of them obviously can even have any chance of beating DJT, but do you see promise in any of them for the future? Or are you of the opinion, as I am anyway, that it's a mistake to do anything other than just get behind the obvious nominee, Donald Trump? I don't understand, Kimberly, why any of them need to be in this race, pulling even the slightest amount of resources away from our obvious nominee.
Agree.
Okay, well then that was an easy.
It's so frustrating to me because it is very clear, Gina, because what matters is the American people, right? The American people that want to put America first and that actually want a competent fighter, someone with the requisite skill set, competency, physical and mental acuity and ability to be in the office of the president or the commander in chief. Okay, the American people have spoken. Our party has spoken, and they want Donald Trump. There's nobody that's even a close second. And quite frankly, that's not surprising because there isn't anyone with his skill set and ability that's done the job. And actually, we know what we're going to get. There are no Donald Trump policies without Donald Trump. Right. You can't have an imposter or a second best or a stunt double or whatever a stand-in. And that's all you would be getting with somebody like DeSantis, et cetera, or even Nikki Haley, all of the above. Tim Scott's a nice guy. Only person I've seen there that I think has some, compelling kind of, interest with people like him, Vivek Ramaswamy, but again, not ready to be president of the United States, et cetera. Maybe, a cabinet position or something like that. But it's pretty obvious. And I was there in person at the debates. I'll be there in person at the debates at the Reagan Library in California coming up in a couple of weeks. And we'll see more of the same. There's nobody there worth their salt that's able to sit there and be the commander in chief on day one and take us running in the right direction that we need. And we need to actually make sure, and it's not just about the office of the presidency and the presidential election, but we've got serious races for the United States Senate, for the United States Congress, and people need to pay attention and wake up and take note of which elected Republicans and which 2024 candidates are coming out strong for Donald Trump. I'm paying attention. I know you are, Gina, and supporting the impeachment of Joe Biden and which ones are being weak-kneed and waffling, because there's just no time for that. You're either, with us and with this country, or you're not. And DeSantis, quite frankly, has been one of the weakest. I'm sorry to say that about our governor here in Florida, but just not ready to be president.
Yeah, I think the strongest thing any single one of them could do for their future, to secure their future in Republican politics, is at the next debate take the opportunity to say they're stepping down because all resources need to go to Donald Trump right now. There's been a lot of speculation regarding who he will choose as his running mate, though. If he asked your advice, KG, who would be on your short list?
It's funny. I am asked that quite often. I have talked to him about it. But, I've always loved, and this is not like, a big reveal thing or whatever, but I've always loved Secretary Ben Carson. Dr. Carson is fantastic. He's been unbelievably loyal. He's incredibly smart and talented. He has a wonderful relationship with President Trump, and he's never wavered in his support of the president or of the country. And I remember an amazing moment when I was at Fox News and covering the presidential debates, and Ben Carson missed when they called the name, and everybody just pushed past him and went like that. Donald Trump stopped and waited and let Ben Carson go out and put his hand on him and was like really, really nice. And I thought, that's a nice relation. I'm going to watch this going forward. But, I think he would be a real asset. But there's other people out there that, people like, and maybe it's Tim Scott, people have talked about Kristi Noem. Some people like, Carrie Lake, Byron Donalds. There's a lot of different people out there that would be really great. Robinson, of course, as well. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens. He definitely hasn't made his mind up, but I will tell you something. He's paying attention because, by the way, that's the only thing that's sort of left open because Donald Trump is going to be the nominee. It's just a matter of who's going to choose as his running mate.
Yeah, keeps going up in the polls. All right, last question. It's more obvious every day that Biden won't make it to Election Day. So we keep hearing the name Michelle Obama. Do you think she could be the actual Democrat nominee? And if not her, who? And with just about a minute left.
I think it's incredibly possible. I think that the Obamas are running things as it is between, Susan Rice and Valerie Jarrett. I think it's only a matter of time before Joe Biden is pushed aside. No one wants Kamala Harris, so they have to get rid of both of them. And you'll see somebody like, maybe a Michelle Obama coming in at the last minute because God knows she probably doesn't want to campaign, or maybe Gavin Newsom. I'll tell you, he wouldn't be telegraphing and talking about it and taking these public positions and talking about debating DeSantis, et cetera, if there wasn't a sort of slight nod from the party, because he's a party guy and he will make sure to stay in lockstep with the Democrats, just like when he did not decide to run for governor and let Jerry Brown go in again. And he instead chose to run for lieutenant governor, which he won handily, which was, by the way, my advice to him at the time.
We'll have more American Sunrise on the other side of the break. Be right back. For our Stay Awake Not Woke, sponsored by Beard Vet Coffee, beardvet.com. Use the promo code RAV for your 10% off. Now, Terrance, in the woke files today, it's commonly believed that we teach history in schools so that bad things that happened in our past aren't repeated. Right. And if Dove had considered Bud Light's recent history, they might have spared the brand from an impending headache. Check this out. Dove has partnered with a Black Lives Matter activist for a new campaign, and she is known for having wrongfully gotten a white student expelled from her university over a misheard remark.
And another one of her claims to fame is that she was part of the movement to get the Robert E. Lee statue taken down in Charlottesville, Virginia. A lot of people remember that. She also announced on Instagram that she has become a, quote, Dove ambassador and posted a video promoting the campaign. Here it is.
My belief is that we should be centering the voices and experiences of the most marginalized people and communities at all times. So when I think about what fat liberation looks like to me, it looks like centering the voices and the experiences of those who live in and who maneuver through spaces and institutions in a fat body. It looks like making accessible spaces and having conversations that are aware of the fact that people have different bodies and that they are interacting with space and people and institutions and communities in a different way. Fat liberation looks like fully embracing those differences and having those conversations instead of shying away from them. To learn more about fat liberation and the campaign for size freedom that Dove is supporting, visit dove.com/size freedom. Tap in, join the campaign, support the campaign. This is important and we should all be talking about it.
Okay, well, while her intentions for the, quote, fat liberation campaign might be pure, how dumb does a company have to be to promote someone who's known for school bullying and for erasing U.S. history? Right?
No words. Let's move on.
I agree. Up next, it's our moment of faith tonight at sundown. The approximately 15 million Jewish people all around the world will celebrate the coming of the new year. For our moment of faith tonight at sundown, Jewish people all around the world will celebrate the beginning of the Jewish New Year. This is called Rosh Hashanah. Now, this holiday commemorates the birthday of the universe, the day God created Adam and Eve, and it's so much more than that. I want to wish especially the happy holiday to our own executive producer of this program, who is an amazing man, David Brown, and he's been so passionate about this. And David, Brody, I know that you and I both have Jewish blood as well. We're both Christians by choice, but Jewish by blood. Do you observe the holidays at all? Because they're important to me. My friend gave me a whole huge book on them, and I do try to observe them, although rather clumsily, I have to admit.
Yeah, I actually don't observe the Jewish New Year. When I say observe, what does that really mean? I mean, it's on my calendar. We know it's the Jewish New Year, and it's not so. It's important, obviously, to observe the Jewish New Year. What's interesting to me, I grew up Jewish. My mother and father were Jewish. I'm 100% Ashkenazi Jew as it relates to the DNA. I gave my life to Jesus Christ in 1988. I like to call myself a completed Jew, if you will. But anyhow, the point simply is that when I've been working for CBN for 20 years, CBN actually has an official holiday. The Evangelical Christian Broadcasting Network has an official holiday for Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. All employees are granted the day off because it is a special day. It's an important day, and it just shows that evangelical Christians, true Bible-believing Christians, are not only friends of Israel, but friends of the Jewish people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've told everybody who knows me, it's practically my bullhorn issue is that everybody needs to visit Israel. Everybody needs that experience. And by observing, I think when I said that, I meant I try to read about it, teach it to my children, and do some of the traditional things on whatever various holidays. And so that's what I do to observe it. But I think you and I both have such a great love for Israel.
Yes, we do.
We know it's commanded in the Bible. And so we really do want to wish a good Yom Tov to all of our Jewish friends. And thanks for this faith moment with me, David. I appreciate you. So much more ahead in the next hour of American Sunrise. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
Ahead on American Sunrise, Vivek Ramaswamy. Does he still have the momentum that he had after that first Republican debate? We'll ask him that and much more when he joins us live in just a few minutes.
Hunter Biden, now indicted on federal gun charges, is going after a former Trump White House staffer for indecent exposure, sort of. Well, find out what the fuss is all about.
And who do you think more Americans trust to fix the economy, Donald Trump or Joe Biden? Insert the laughing emoji. This isn't brain surgery, folks, or even Jeopardy. It's American Sunrise, and it continues right now.
We've got your back as you start your day.
Articulating what the majority of Americans feel today, and I really appreciate that you do.
Y'all tell the truth.
You guys are our voice.
We watch every morning while getting ready for work.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Gina. It's hour 2 of American Sunrise. This week is almost over, and Donald Trump won in 2020. That's just a response to someone in the chat. And I am going to miss Terrance Bates when he heads back to Denver. Terrance, can't you just stay a little bit longer? Right? Remember, we had this conversation the other day, Terrance and me, about music choices, and we differ a little bit. So, Terrance, that was from my heart to you because you know that's not my brand of music.
Well, I appreciate it. I definitely appreciate it. And I must say, it's very comfortable down here. It's going to be hard to get on the plane this afternoon and head back. But, David, you got to do what you got to do. The family is waiting. I've got bills to pay and all kinds of other
miss you.
Yes, my wife told me this morning, she said, babe, we can't wait to see you. And I'm like, okay, that means she went shopping on Amazon and I've got to pay the bill. So.
Well, you're a family man, Terrance, at heart. I think if I were gone for a week, my family would say, can you stay another week? No, I don't. That's not true. That's not true.
I have to tell you before you go to headlines, David, I have to tell before Terrance goes to headlines. This morning, Terrance said, hey, I just want to say, if she's ever in Colorado, just let me know. She can stay at my house. And I'm looking at him like, trying to think, who is he talking about? I realize he's talking about my dog.
I love it.
He wasn't inviting me. He was inviting my dog, who, by the way, is a male. But anyway, that was really funny.
For the record, you also have an open invitation, Dr. G.
It's all right. I know I come second to Colby. He's the bomb. I get that. He loves you too.
Thank you very much. All right, the dog, Gina, and me. Terrance, to you in West Palm. Got it. Got the strategy.
You guys can stay at my house. I'll stay at a nice plush hotel. There you go. Well, these guys are truly historic times as Hunter Biden is now the first child of a sitting U.S. president to face criminal charges. Unbelievable. Not really. The first son and his legal team are preparing a defense this morning after Hunter was indicted on federal gun charges for allegedly lying about his illegal drug use on a federal form to buy a gun. In all, Hunter faces 3 counts. The new charges against the first son are only for the gun violation, though. Special counsel David Weiss is still expected to file additional tax charges. You probably remember the younger Biden is set to accept a plea deal back in July on 2 misdemeanor tax charges and that gun charge, but that agreement fell apart in court. One U.S. senator is holding up nominations for scores of military generals and leaders. From COVID mandates to woke policies, he says the U.S. armed services are bombing and sleep at the wheel. But Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville tells me the U.S. House's effort to impeach Joe Biden is now on his radar as well. He also says that he and his colleagues in the Senate have largely watched the Biden investigations in the U.S. House from afar. But just this week, the former football coach got a closer look at the X's and O's of the evidence against President Biden.
Terrance, I'm going to tell you, yesterday we had a briefing from Jim Jordan and Congressman Comer. They've been kind of leading the charge of this in the House. I was shocked. I was shocked at the information that we do have, the evidence that we do have, the things that the American people are getting ready to see that's going to come out. I blame our institutions like the FBI, the DOJ. They have been asleep at the wheel, along with our mainstream media. I mean, it is their job to get out there and dig and find the things that are helping this country and hurting this country. And the American people are going to have to go through a tough year coming up. And, of course, we got an election coming up. I don't know whether impeachment is on the horizon. They probably, with what I saw, they have enough to maybe get this pushed through the House. It won't happen in the Senate. We don't have enough votes over here. I don't really want to waste the time of the American people because we're in dire straits with our economy and things that are going on worldwide. But we do need to stay within the rule of law.
Well, that's his perspective. Hear from Senator Tuberville firsthand about why he is holding up nominations of the country's top generals and admirals and his proposal for moving the process forward. That's going to come up next week here on American Sunrise. Plus, there is a lot of buzz this morning about President Trump's one-on-one interview with Megyn Kelly.
No, it's
Yeah, this is it right here. It is the former Fox News host's first sit-down interview with the former president following their now infamous moment back in 2015 when Kelly's tough questioning of then presidential candidate Donald Trump touched an emotional nerve. Now that the two have patched things up, the 45th president laying out his plan for dealing with illegal immigration and the Mexican cartels. While President Trump claims that he never said that he would send American troops across the border to fight the Mexican cartels, it's not necessarily a bad idea, he says.
We can't have a war with Mexico.
No, it's a war on cartels. Mexico's petrified of the cartels. The cartels are running Mexico.
But if we send our troops across the southern border, you know better than I do that the Mexican president, if he doesn't like it, we're in a war.
I know, but I'm not too worried about that war. No, Mexico is sending their troops into our country in the form of illegal aliens that are killing people, in many cases, that are causing lots of disease and lots of problems.
So far, Kelly has also featured several other Republican presidential candidates on her Sirius XM radio show. However, President Trump's appearance is arguably the most anticipated. That's a quick check of your headlines. David?
Terrance, thanks. Time to get to our big headliner now, Vivek Ramaswamy. Vivek, look, I've known him now for a little bit, and I got to tell you, as my dad would say, he's a smart cookie. And I think Mike Pence and everybody else found that out on the debate stage the other day. Donald Trump likes him. He is channeling a lot of the populist fever in the Republican Party, and he joins us now. Vivek, great to see you here on American Sunrise.
It's good to see you. How are you, David?
I'm doing well. Hey, look, we're here with Gina Loudon, and we're curious about a lot of different things. Let's start with the Hunter Biden indictment. Yeah. What's your take? What's happening? What's really at play here underneath the scenes here?
I think this Hunter Biden so-called indictment is really just a deflection. It is a smokescreen to distract attention away from the real issue we should talk about, which is the fact that the Biden family appears to have sold out our foreign policy interests for the private gain of that family, both with respect to Ukraine and quite possibly with respect to China as well. And yet, instead of investigating that, instead of actually going to the root cause of that problem, they are instead creating this smokescreen of a thin charge to effectively placate the public. It's wrong. I also think, David, it's no coincidence that you see the beginning of this, though, right when Biden is losing his own popularity within the Democrat Party. And this is what I think conservatives need to wake up to. That's why I don't even talk about Joe Biden that much when I'm on the campaign trail. Biden is a puppet. It's the managerial class in the administrative state, the deep state, the three-letter agencies, that have determined when Biden will and won't be useful to advance their permanent interests. And right when Biden's popularity begins to decline, if they feel like Trump's going to get out of the way, they'll sideline Biden too. That's what's going on here, and I think we have to see through the smokescreen.
Yeah. Well, Vivek, I have a question that's on the minds of our audience. We try to really express their voices, and one of the things they're very wary of is any Soros influence in politics. So I'd like you to respond to the reports that you've accepted Soros money in the form, I believe it was a scholarship. I've read some different things on this, because there's a big difference between a scholarship and a fellowship. And I received scholarships in my college years, and I couldn't tell you one source of funding in any of them, by the way. So I wanted to give you a chance to respond to our audience on your reported ties to the Soros family that concerns our audience. Yeah.
Absolutely. I was just in Iowa. People were bringing in mailers with a picture of George Soros next to me saying that I was somehow compromised by George Soros. That's laughable. I have been the biggest critic of George Soros. And first of all, with respect to George Soros, zero ties whatsoever, other than my being a big critic of him in public. Look at what I stand for. It's the exact opposite value set. What people are now extrapolating from is that back in 2010, when I was 24 years old, I applied for a different scholarship funded by a different individual, Paul Soros, who's now long dead, who made his money independently, who also has, as I understand it at least, different views, though I never interrogated them, who hundreds of kids apply for. It's a generic scholarship. I want it. Helps you pay for graduate school. I'd advise every 24-year-old in the same position to do the same thing. My view is people should be skeptical. We have been lied to as a people for a long time, including from politicians and people running for office. So I embrace that skepticism. But it's also worth getting to the actual truth of the matter. I think just as they said about Trump, that they've used similar analogies in the past, Hillary Clinton plan, Soros plan. Well, you know what? There are candidates in this race who have accepted George Soros money. I don't particularly hold that against them. Trump had a $160 million loan from George Soros. I don't think that makes him a Soros plant. Ron DeSantis has had fundraisers even this year, this summer, hosted by George Soros' investment partners. But I prefer to take everyone at their word. In their cases, I take them at their word, and we'll actually have a debate on the merits. But in my case, the ties to George Soros are zero. It's fake news, misinformation. What do you expect from the media?
Vivek, you've been hit, obviously, on Israel, on the whole situation with Israel. Why don't you clear this up right here, right now, as it relates to you being, quote, pro-Israel or not? People will say, obviously, you've talked about potentially cutting off funding, but you say under X, Y, and Z conditions. Give us exactly from your mouth to our viewers about how you see the situation with Israel.
Absolutely. So I have full confidence, David, that our relationship with Israel will be stronger by the end of my first term than it has ever been, because I will treat it as a friendship, not a transactional relationship. And I say this as somebody who actually has a lot of common cause and ties with Israelis, because we have something in common, which is candor. Some of my earliest and most successful business partners were Israelis. Actually, an Israeli firm backed my first company as one of its first investors. And so I understand dealing with Israel, candor makes a difference. Bibi is very candid. I'm very candid. We're going to have a great relationship. I'll have him over to the White House in a way that Biden did not. I've been very clear. I will lead us forward to Abraham Accords 2.0, getting other countries into that pact. It was a great accomplishment of the Trump administration. We will also make sure that Iran never, ever becomes nuclear equipped. That's a joint Israeli and U.S. interest. I'll stand for it. I'm not using the standard Republican talking points, so that lends itself to misquoting. One of the things I've said is if Israel ever gets to the point where they're no longer reliant on that U.S. aid that we provide them, that would be a win for Israel. But we would not cut off that aid until Israel themselves, Bibi, tells us that they're ready for it. And that's not a ridiculous idea, because Bibi himself was the one in the 90s who said that the civilian aid they were ready to wean off as well. So I speak with candor, but that's why we're going to have a real friendship rather than just reading from the talking point binder served up from super PACs to GOP candidates. I don't read from that.
Yeah, Vivek Ramaswamy, thank you. I'm so sorry we're up against a hard break here, but thank you for being with us. It's your first time here. We hope to have you back again soon.
Thank you.
Hunter Biden's legal team is now suing a former Trump White House staffer. Why, though? We'll find out as American Sunrise continues.
Red State Barbecue. Red State Barbecue.
2024 is getting saucy, and if you thought the swamp in D.C. was bad, well, we head now to the jungles of Panama, where the illegal immigration problem that heads north to our border will be front and center to whoever wins the White House. Law and Border host Ben Berkham is on a mission right now to see just what the illegal migration situation is since he has last been in that country. Ben, in fact, is in the middle of the jungles of Panama now, and he joins us by sat phone with more. Ben, good morning to you. What is the situation there? What have you learned?
Hey, guys. Terrance, we're down here, Ben and Oscar. We've been in the jungle for 3 days. We're in a little village called Bajo Chiquito. It's in Darien Gap. Last time I was here, it's a village of a couple hundred people. It's hard to describe. They're rotating through about 5,000 people per day. And it's unbelievable. I mean, America does not know what's coming. We went up into the jungle.
Ben, are you still there? All right. Well, folks, you're looking at video.
I'm here. I'm just hearing some background chatter as well.
Okay. I apologize, Ben. So let's just kind of put this into perspective. So where you are, and we're looking at video now of people on boats going up the river. We also saw probably hundreds, if not thousands, of people crowded. So where you are right now is basically a thoroughfare to get to the United States. Put into perspective where many of the people that you're encountering are coming from. I suspect it's not just South and Central America.
Yeah, they're coming from all over the world. So just to give you an idea of what we saw, we started our trip in a little called Metzati, went through Lajas Blancas, completely overrun there as well. It's 4,000 people there. We got on the boat, came up the river, a 3-hour ride up the river. We saw 116 boats of illegals. We videotaped all of them. And 116. The biggest day I had before coming here was 17 boats. So we're talking 5 times as many coming down through the Darien Gap, and they're coming from everywhere. The majority are still Venezuelans, but it's crazy. You got people from the Congo, you got people from Middle East, a lot coming from Pakistan, from Afghanistan. And now, oddly, there's the Vietnam contingent coming through. It's a global illegal alien travel agency is what's happened. And what Secretary Mayorkas is saying, what Joe Biden is saying, what all of these folks in Washington, D.C. are saying is an absolute lie. It's a train wreck. That's where down here, it's pristine jungle, but it's just been completely trashed. There's species everywhere. We saw 2 dead bodies decomposing. We smelled probably 5 or 6 more. It's hell on earth.
Ben, put into perspective for us why this particular route through the Darien Gap seems to be the current preferred route.
Well, there's a couple different reasons. Some's weather contingent. Other is cartel driven. So they kind of choose the route. This is all run through the Gulf Cartel of Colombia, and they're all actually marketing to people around the world. It's also supported by the United Nations. They're out there telling people it's not a bad thing to do. And although they're handing out the birth control and condoms, Oscar, I don't know if you want to jump in on that, but yeah, there's 3 main different routes right now. We're on the main route that's being used, but they kind of shift throughout the year sometimes.
Yeah, let's bring in Oscar. Go ahead, Oscar.
The route that they're using right now, the average number that the Centerfront officials in Panama are saying is 2,500 per day. Every village is receiving. If you add what we had just saw on just one day, was just barely almost close to 10,000 people, just one day. So you're talking about that you got an average of people 2,500 from the Colombian border entering the Panamanian jungle and going through this hell on earth, really. We crossed yesterday through rivers that it was completely dangerous. Children, crossing this river, the river almost took them away. We saw people that they have gone blind because of certain bacteria that is in the river because of all the dead bodies that they have been, washed through the whole river as you're coming down. It's a disaster. And and the almost encounter again, where they were assaulting and robbing and abusing from migrants inside the jungle. All of this is provided by Alejandro Mayorkas and Joe Biden and his open border policies, destroying jungles, destroying human life, and destroying borders. Terrance.
Oscar, before I let you go, one of the things that Ben mentioned that I found of interest was he mentioned Colombian cartels. Traditionally, we think of Mexican cartels being behind the sort of mass migration, illegal immigration, but there are cartels throughout the region, really, that seem to be involved here and profiting.
Yeah, the Colombian cartel is the one that is controlling the travel agency right now, and it looks like they have expanded into places like what Ben was saying. You have a mass migration that is coming from Afghanistan and also from Vietnam. Somebody's promoting this, and we are, the studies and the intelligence that we have on our trips is that it leads to the Colombian Gulf cartel. That is the one that is effectively controlling the jungle on the Colombian border, and it is flooding, the jungle with migrants into the United States of America. The thing is that, Colombian government is doing absolutely nothing to stop this, and it looks like they're in cahoots with the organized crime. And again, like we have said before, United Nations and all these NGOs, they're not doing anything about it.
And just to jump in real quick, Terrance, it's basically everywhere you go. So Mexico has their own cartels. Guatemala has their own cartels. Every country has their own. Some of them have overlaps, so the Gulf cartel actually runs all the way up to the U.S. southern border. They've got land they control all the way up there. They've got politicians they control all the way up there. And I believe they actually control politicians in America too. But each region has their own kind of warlords, their cartels. But it's all driven by profit. So if there's money to be made, these guys are out there and they're making the money, and we're providing the resources for them. The policies coming out of Washington, D.C. are what are providing those resources.
Ben and Oscar, we appreciate your time. Please be safe as you continue to bring us this important information. Again, this amazing coverage and Ben and Oscar's trip is sponsored by Patriot Mobile, patriotmobile.com/RAV. You can go there to sign up and get more information. We're back in a moment.
Freedom-loving patriots are falling in love with America's barbecue sauce, Red State Barbecue. Red State's 8 different sauces are perfect for whatever sparks your barbecue palate. Visit redstatebbq.com. That's redstatebbq.com and use promo code RAV10 for 10% off. Red State Barbecue.
coming up on 30 minutes after the top of the hour. It's about 27 after now. So good to have you along for the ride. We appreciate it. Let's turn our attention to the economy now. There just is no deal right now between Detroit's big three automakers and the 146,000 members of the United Auto Workers Union. The result, about 13,000 workers at car plants around the country are off the job right now. Instead, they're on the picket lines at a General Motors plant in Missouri, a Ford factory, in Michigan, and a Stellantis plant in Ohio. It is the first time in the UAW's 88-year history that workers have walked out on all three major U.S. car companies at the very same time. Breitbart economics editor John Carney blames President Biden and Bidenomics for the strike.
And look, this is actually the fault of Joe Biden, because one of the things driving this strike is the fact that people's wages have deteriorated so much. Of course, the unions want to be paid more because they've seen their buying power go down. Their cost of living has skyrocketed. So, of course, they need to pay.
Detroit automakers, by the way, reportedly offering a pay raise of up to 20% over 4.5 years. That, by the way, is less than half of what the union is calling for. U.S. car manufacturing could grind to a halt for the foreseeable future as a result of this strike. And analysts are also saying that as a result of this strike, you're likely going to see less inventory at car manufacturing companies and at car dealerships, which, of course, is going to mean there's a spike in car prices. So brace yourself for that, particularly if you're in the market for a brand new car. All right, we're coming up on the opening bell on Wall Street right now. Obviously, a lot happening right now. The pre-market trading looking pretty good. Looks like the NASDAQ, S&P 500, and all other indices are in the green in futures trading, but that obviously could change here momentarily as the bell rings. We're going to get to that here momentarily. Guys, do we have the video of the bell? There we go. All right, I like that animation, by the way. I'm the money man. You can see the folks standing by on Wall Street right now waiting for the bell to toll. That's going to happen. The claps are going on, which is obviously an indicator that the bell is about to ring and that the markets ultimately will officially open, and then we'll see exactly where things stand. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, right on cue as I was trying to tap dance. So the Dow is now open, but it's starting off in the red. The NASDAQ also open, but it is in the green, meaning that things are positive. Unfortunately, the S&P 500, though, showing in the red at this very moment as the markets are now open. So we'll continue to monitor things for you throughout the day. But now let's turn our focus to foreign policy with David Brody.
Terrance, thanks. And speaking of foreign policy and money, how about Iran? They're getting $6 billion as U.S. sanctions now are lifted or will be lifted regarding this prisoner swap that we have heard about this week. But the $6 billion obviously being key to all of that. And look, Iran has been a nemesis, more than a nemesis, just a downright threat to the world and definitely to America for, my goodness, I mean, 40, 50, 60 years. I mean, let's talk more about it. With Middle East expert Waleed Faris, who is author of a new book that is out. And I want to get, Waleed, this title right exactly, and that's why I'm putting on my reading glasses. It's called Iran, an Imperialistic Republic and U.S. Policy. There it is. Waleed, great to have you on the show. Look, how do we deal with Iran? What does the United States need to do to figure out the Iranian jigsaw puzzle that just seems to be continuing to be a nemesis and a thorn in America's best interest?
Thank you, David, and thank you for inviting me today to talk about the book and this important development. The $6 billion offered to the Iranian regime. Look, the United States, even this administration and this Congress as well, need to make sure to change course with Iran. We have not changed course with Iran since the days of the Obama administration. You remember in 2014, they negotiated a deal, which in my view, David, is a transaction. 2015, we offered to pay $150 billion over the years to the regime. And what did the regime do with that money, David? They bought weapons, they bought missiles, ballistic missiles, of course, funded all these militias in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Hezbollah, Hamas in Gaza, and others. So this last deal is only a slice of a commitment made in 2015 because Congress is opposing to re-sign the deal and the Iranian opposition is opposing. Israel is very concerned. The Arab countries are not very happy with it. So they are trying to pay that money under the aegis of exchange of hostages or of detainees.
Waleed, the United States says the $6 billion is only supposed to be used for humanitarian efforts. I mean, give me a break. I mean, even Iran is saying it's our money. We'll do what we want. How are they going to check? How are they going to, what kind of safeguards are going to be in place? I mean, I say that rhetorically. I can't imagine that will ever happen.
There is no safe anything with the Iran regime. And as you just mentioned right now, the president of the Islamic Republic said that's our money. And what is funny about it, funny and dramatic at the same time, is that the spokespersons at the State Department, when asked about the money, he said, it's not our money. And then he said the Iranians will get it. He cannot put conditions on Iranian money after a sovereign country will control that money. And the Iranians are very clear. They're going to use it wherever their so-called national security wants them to use it, which in my view, and looking at the pattern of the past few years, they're going to just increase their military power in the region.
Waleed, how do we get out of this spiral that has just been going on for decades? What's the solution? I say the solution. It's not tidy. It's not neat. It's going to be complicated. Or is it impossible? I mean, what needs to happen? I know there was an Iranian youthful revolution going on over there. Is that the key to this from a generational standpoint?
You just mentioned it, David. That's exactly it. And you need an American decision. Remember in 2009 when former President Obama said, you know, we're not going to meddle. What does that mean? We're going to let that regime crush that revolution. And it happened again in 2019. And it happened again now. And we are now entering the first anniversary of that revolution, the Massa revolution. So what Congress needs to do, especially the House, which is debating the matter, is to force or pressure the administration to start directing those Iranian money not to the regime, but to the opposition. That would be the beginning of a new policy.
Waleed Phares, always great to see you. Please, everybody, go get that book, the new book by Waleed Phares. If you want to get smarter, that's a great read. Thank you so much, Waleed. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we're back with more on American Sunrise. We should mention that this segment sponsored by AMAC.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.
feel like we should be skipping, Gina. Like when I hear this music, I feel like we should be like holding hands and skipping along, right?
Right, I can't even whistle. But yeah, I love A Sea of Mud. And, with your code RAV, you get your discount, right. seaofmud.com. And Terrance loves the swimming suits. I love the T-shirts. So
I'm starting to get self-conscious. You keep bringing up me in a swimming suit and a bathing suit.
It's just, it's a great visual. You've got to admit.
You haven't seen me in a bathing suit, but I'll just be quiet and let you actually do this segment. Sorry.
I want to know what color swimming suit, though, because you are so dapper. Like every day you show up with a coordinated tie and handkerchief, and I'm curious what color. Would it be like a itsy bitsy teeny weeny yellow polka dot from Sea of Mud? All right, we have
itsy bitsy teeny weeny and me never go hand in hand. I'm just going to put that out there. But go ahead, yes, ma'am.
Jen in our chat is visiting the villages this weekend. Jen, I just want you to know I'm really jealous, and I might just show up because I loved it there. Okay. Loved my time there. For our Drain the Swamp story today, we know that sometimes polls can be predictable, but they're important in that they confirm what we know with statistics, which might stop the White House from lying. Well, maybe. Anyway, we can only pray for that with this next headline. Here it goes. A new poll confirms that more Americans trust President Trump to fix the economy than Joe Biden. Those numbers come in at 36% for Bidenomics versus 47% for faith in Trump and MAGA to recover the economy, MAGAnomics, as Joe Biden called it yesterday. So kind of not really surprising numbers to me.
Not surprising at all. In fact, it also showed that 70% of people say that the economy is getting worse, while only about 22% say that they see improvement. And David, I'm surprised about that 22%, but Gina, I'll yield to you here.
Yeah, well, 84% of Americans say that the rising cost of living under this regime has negatively impacted them, with the majority struggling to even pay for groceries or make their house payments or pay for their utilities, which is really going to be something as we go into winter. Not even to mention transportation. I've talked to more friends who've canceled vacations. So will Joe Biden finally retire the word Bidenomics and accept that people do not like his economic? They do not like your eggs and ham or whatever it is. They do not like it, Joe, you am. But, the numbers, they do speak for themselves, don't they?
They absolutely do. Go ahead, David. Yeah, please.
No, they do, and they should not only retire Bidenomics, they should retire Biden, and that would solve the entire problem.
There you go.
For sure. Look, I look at my 401k and I go, oh gosh, where's Trump? Where's Trump? And I'll be honest with you. My wife and I have talked about this, and I'm sure there's many folks across the country who said about this, like, you might want to invest in the stock market, or you might want to do certain things financially, or buy a house, whatever. And you go, wait a minute, hold on for a second. With Biden at the helm, so to speak, I say so to speak because is he really at the helm?
Exactly.
I don't want to do anything economically under this regime. So there's that. And then I got to tell you, I also talked to a liberal friend of mine. Yes, I have a liberal friend. I'm not a liberal close friend, but I have a liberal friend who said, I can't stand Trump, but I tell you what, I can't wait till he's back in office because I need some money, is what he said. I mean, in other words, he was like, my bank account was doing well 4 or 5, whatever it was, 6 years ago, and now he's struggling. So look, I mean, even the liberals get it. If you put a truth serum injection into them, they understand.
Yeah.
All right, we are going to switch gears, but I think you just made a headline, David. You have only one liberal friend. Changing gears now. Let's head to Atlanta, where Fonnie Willis is itching to see President Trump behind bars. Holding the line in the Peach State is our friend and our co-host of Real America's Voice, Cowboy Logic, Donna Fiducia. Donna, welcome to the show. Always good to see you.
Hey, guys. Great to see you, too. Yeah, Georgia is, I guess, the spearhead of a lot of crap cutting that needs to happen. And, Chris Carr, our Georgia AG, did actually indict 61 Antifa members, one of which was a lawyer for the Southern Poverty Law Center. I want to see how much that's going to stick. These are the guys that actually tore up the whole area where this cop city was supposed to be named, and they were camping out. They were ruining the environment. That doesn't seem to matter when they're involved. But it's nice to see at least a little bit of pushback from the right, even though it is AG Chris Carr. But, you guys have been talking about Hunter Biden all day, and all I keep saying is the shiny object, All you're doing is ignoring the fact that by this gun charge that he's facing now, avoids any kind of connection to daddy. And that's really the bottom line. It avoids anything. And another thing that I think we should always talk about now going forward is that Joe Biden is not pulling the strings. You guys have been talking about this as well. It's Barack Obama. Barack Obama is pulling the strings here. He always has been, and he's always said, I'd like to be able to sit in my basement in my pajamas in front of a computer and run the country, which is essentially what I think is happening.
Donna, I do want to come back to Georgia, though, where you are really quickly, and the case that Fani Willis is pushing, because it seems to some degree that case is falling apart in that she wanted to try everyone together, and now it seems like everyone's jumping ship saying, no, I'm going to be tried on my own. And the judge has pretty much said, okay, I'm going to allow you to kind of get to that point to where each of these cases potentially would be tried alone.
Yes, and it is going to drag it out. The judge actually said, because when you have this many defendants, 19 of them, and their lawyers and everybody else, we don't have a big enough courtroom. Well, if that's the excuse we have, that's fine as far as I'm concerned. This needs to be dragged out. You've got Fani Willis in there with RICO statutes on young thug who's awaiting trial, I think going on something like 2 years at this point, and they want to try 19 people associated, well, 18 people plus Donald Trump, before the next election. And that's because they obviously want to have him be a quote-unquote felon if he gets found guilty, and they think that's going to throw him off the ballot or make a lot of people not vote for him. It's obvious all political, and it just is not going to give these people a fair trial, and I do agree with the judge on that one. So it's probably going to drag out, and it was a big hit for Fani Willis, and rightly so, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm wondering about the racketeering charges. So they go with racketeering, but therefore you got to lump everybody together. I mean, if you're going to make a strong case, you got to put everybody and have all the connections. I wonder if that was a mistake just tactically, Donna, to do that, because now you're going to have the delays and you're probably not going to get a trial before the election.
No, and you know what, David? We see it as a bigger picture, too. This is exactly the same MO they're doing with the Jan 6ers. They had to tie everybody into Trump. Enrique Tarrio, who we have on our show this weekend, 22 years. He wasn't even in D.C., let alone the Capitol, and he gets 22 years. Because in this broad brush that they try to paint Donald Trump in as a quote-unquote insurrectionist, they have to tie all these people together. So they have to do it all in one case. It's the same thing with Atlanta. And I guess in a way, I don't think it's going to hold water. I really don't. If we have a group of judges that actually might follow the Constitution.
Well, Donna, I have to tell you, in our chat, they are loving the outfit combination of the black and red and yellow with the black hat. Also, Jenga said, I'll be watching Cowboy Logic on Rab Saturday night. Barn parties are awesome. So the three of us want to know when we get to come to the Cowboy Logic barn party.
Anytime. Just join. 6 a.m. tomorrow morning and 9 p.m., as Jenga said, tomorrow night. And also at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday. We have Dr. Rhonda Mormon on this week, guys. We've known her for almost 10 years now. She went to Harvard Law with Barack Obama. Look at the name of the book, Mr. Obama and Me. Boy, does she have a lot of tales to tell. Wow. And I'll just leave it at that.
Cannot wait.
That's
Donna
a tease.
Fiducia.
That's a tease.
That was a good tease, yes.
I'm coming to the barn, Donna.
We're ready. We want to come.
The barn's wide open. The horses are already out.
I love it.
Love it.
Let's do it.
Absolutely. Donna Fiducia, always good to see you. Give Donna a big old hug for me. You know, that's my buddy. We appreciate you being here. And folks, remember, you can watch Cowboy Logic right here on Real America's Voice. It's on Saturdays at 9 p.m. and Sundays at 4 p.m. Donna, thank you as always.
Yeah, up next, time to spill some tea. You know, I'm always ready for that. Ahead in the cup, Nancy Pelosi, Kamala Harris, and a whole lot of shade. Find out about that brew next as American Sunrise continues.
Let's spill some tea.
Sponsored by Artillery Tea Company, artilleryteaco.com. Don't forget the co on there. Use promo code RAV for your 10% off. Artillery Tea is all natural, whole leaf tea bags, chemical free. Each tea bag can be used 2 times. Artillery Tea Company is family and veteran owned and operated, and a portion of your purchase goes to help veterans and first responder charities. artilleryteaco.com, promo code RAV for your 10% off.
By the way, just want to kind of update you. We just had Donna and Don from Calvary Logic. Here are their times: 6 a.m. Eastern Time Saturday, 9 p.m. Eastern Time Saturday, and 4 o'clock Eastern Time on Sundays. That's when you can tune in. Very good show, folks. You definitely want to do
Thanks,
that.
Terrance.
All right, want to make sure I got all that out there.
That.
In today's Cup, though, a former Speaker of the House throwing shade at the current Vice President. The old adage, be careful what you say, well, it often seems like an unspoken rule of politics, but it also seems that nobody told Nancy Pelosi to be careful with what she doesn't say. Here, check out the headline.
Is Vice President Kamala Harris the best running mate for this?
Refused to concede that Kamala Harris is the best vice president option for President Biden in a recent interview.
She was asked, in fact, 3 times if Kamala Harris is running as the right running mate for Joe Biden's 2024 bid for the White House, and didn't go well. Watch.
Vice President Kamala Harris the best running mate for this president?
He thinks so, and that's what matters. And by the way,
you think so?
She's very politically astute. I don't think people give her enough credit. She's, of course, values-based, consistent with the president's values and the rest. And people don't understand, she's politically astute. Why would she be vice president if she were not? But when she was running for attorney general in California, she had 6% in the polls. 6% in the polls. And she politically astutely made her case about why she would be good, did her politics, and became attorney general. So people shouldn't underestimate what Kamala Harris brings to the table.
But do you think she is the best running mate, though?
She's the vice president of the United States. So when people say to me, well, why isn't she doing this or that? I said, because she's the vice president. That's the job description. You don't do that much. You're a source of strength, inspiration, intellectual resource, and the rest. I think she's represented our country very well at home and
So she's picked up on Joe Biden's whisper habit, which is just weird and awkward and eerie. And now she's added this little eyebrow thing to it, which, frankly, I'm surprised she could do her eyebrows because I think, well, anyway. David, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's cringeworthy, honestly. Well, Nancy Pelosi and cringeworthy typically go in the same sentence.
True.
But when Anderson Cooper said, so what do you think? You think Kamala is best VP choice? Her answer is, he thinks so? How about, yeah, she's the best choice? Well, it's kind of like, let's all just read into that. Well, he thinks so, therefore I don't really think so.
And let's Right. Again, and let's keep the source in mind. We're talking about a congresswoman, the former Speaker of the House from California, where the current Vice President Kamala Harris served as not only senator but also a attorney general in that state. So not to get the vote of confidence from someone from your own fundamental state, that's huge.
I think those people, that 6% that used to like her, I think they were about right. About 6% of people like her. She's a nightmare.
Yeah.
And nobody wants someone to follow in Nancy's footsteps either, by the way. Go ahead, David, sorry.
Yeah, I'm looking at the quote here from her. Do you think she's Anderson Cooper says, do you think she's the best choice for VP? And her answer is, she's the president of the vice president of the United States. It's like, okay, but what? You know what? What a debacle. And that's being kind to debacle.
Embarrassment,
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to Birch Gold really quickly, guys, because Vladimir Putin, of course, called the U.S. dollar's drop in dominance, quote, objective and irreversible during the recent BRICS summit, which happened in South Africa. All of this as Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa formally agreed to use local currencies instead of the U.S. dollar. It, of course, is the first shoe to fall here.
Yeah, it wouldn't have happened under Trump, by the way. As demand for the dollar weakens, the buying buying power of the dollar weakens. And that's why Birch Gold is busier than ever. I know I was burning up their phones a couple of weeks ago, trying to do all of the things we tell you about on this show every day. Investors and savers want to harness the power of physical gold held in a tax-sheltered IRA.
Well, if you want to call again, all you have to do is actually move from the phone call to a text and text the word America to the number 989898 for your free information kit on gold. With thousands of satisfied customers, an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, and countless 5-star reviews, you can count on Birch Gold to help you navigate transitioning an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold. That might be why you were having some problems, because you called and didn't text, Dr. G.
You can do both. We just give the text number on here, Terrance. All right, as the U.S. dollar continues to receive pressure from foreign countries' digital currency and central banks, arm yourself with information on how to protect your savings. Text America, as Terrance very clearly said, to 989898. Claim your free info kit now.
Hold on. Here's a quick quiz for you. What do you have to text to 989898?
America.
Girl, you've been listening. Look at yes. Well, as if being Friday wasn't good news enough, it is time to smile. Up next, we'll have our early weekend edition of Sunny Side Up. That's next.
Tired of the same old mass-produced, globalist-supporting tea companies? Artillery Tea Company is the Patriot source of natural premium tea. Visit artillerytco.com and use promo code RAD for 10% off.